What is up, everyone? JD here. Hope you're all doing well today. Today I'm going to be bringing you my disassembly and maintenance of the Banter. Had this one recently on my beach vacation, and I was out on the sand a little bit. When I would cut into some chips or anything else that I needed, I would pull this right out of the little pouch that was on the back of my beach chair and use it. And I went ahead and also posted some Instagram posts of this one as well. Used it to get into some taco seasoning, things of that nature. So I wanted to go ahead, now that I'm back home, get it disassembled and do the maintenance for this particular knife. Now, what I'm going to be using here is going to be the Kershaw tool with bits. Hopefully you can see that. This is the T6 to get the pocket clip off, and then I have the Scout tool driver with bits. Don't know if that's going to show up as much. This is the T8 for the pivot, and hopefully you can see that says on it. It's a little grungy, sorry about that. But really, this is going to be an easy one to do because it does have the captive pivot. I just work from the pocket clip side. So we'll go ahead and get started. Use your T6 to go ahead and loosen your pocket clip bolts off of the Banter. Banter, forgot the name there for a second. Or to say the name, didn't forget what it was called. And go ahead and set those to the side. While I'm talking about this, don't forget the tools are linked all the way down at the bottom of the description where I have my recommended tools. I go ahead and just loosen up the pivot a little bit, and then I'll go ahead and remove the other T8 bolt from the standoff for the hardware. Once that is loose, go ahead and set that to the side as well. And then you can go ahead and completely remove the pivot bolt. I keep it sandwiched together because it does have the liner lock kind of pushing a little bit of pressure. Go ahead and remove your scale and set that to the side. Go ahead, put your hand on the thumb stud, pull up on the lock bar a little bit, and that should allow this to come loose. Sorry, I always forget to check to see if there's any hidden bolts, but they are not. You can see here, plenty of lube, not too bad at all. We're going to go ahead and pull this out, take a look at it. You can see here that the smooth side of the cage ceramic bearings are on the outside. Go ahead and set that to the side. With the blade out, you can go ahead, keep your finger on the actual stop pin. Make sure you do not lose your pivot, and just go ahead and drop that other ceramic bearing out of there. Now, what I recommend for cleaning all of this is a little rubbing alcohol on a dry pad. You don't need much, and you can actually just use the same section over as long as it's not too dirty. So we'll go ahead, wipe off very gently. And the reason I use rubbing alcohol is because it dries almost immediately. So you can see it wasn't too dirty. But again, I'm doing this to make sure there's no grains or sand or anything like that in there. And then I just go ahead and, as you can see, I work the bearings. I know the name of the stuff, I swear. The bearings out to make sure that they're nice and clean as well. And again, the rubbing alcohol dries really quickly, which is why I do like to use this. It does stay on the cloth long enough to get through all of this if you're moving pretty quickly. But if you find that it is drying out, just, go ahead and reapply. So you can see it is starting to wear its track, which is really nice. And I like to make sure that the lock bar is also clean so that there's no lock stick. And then you can go ahead and drop the pivot out so that you can clean the actual line here. It does have a little insert for the track to wear on. It doesn't ride directly on the carbon fiber, so just keep note of that. And then I would also just go ahead and clean the pivot out. If you've never seen these before, they have a little notch right there, and then on the actual line, oh gosh, the stop pin fell. On the actual scale itself, it has that little captive pivot in there, so you can just line the up and put that back in and drop that back in. We will put some fresh lube on the actual pivot bolt itself, but this, you want to make sure that it goes back in there nice and clean. I'm having a little deja vu. I hope that I'm not doing this video and have one out there already, but it may have been that I took this and cleaned it off video, which might have been why it's so well lubed before I put it all back together. Now, having everything on the bottom side back together, you got the pivot in, you got the the stop pin in and the pivot bolt. Go ahead and start lubing. Pick your poison. I don't really care what you use. Just I would recommend not using WD-40 unless you have the one that is specifically meant for a task like this, because the WD-40 does have products out now that are actually really good. I actually picked some of their dry lube up for my mountain bike chain, and it works phenomenally. So keep that in mind when you think about WD-40, because a lot of people think of the old WD-40 that's really not meant for this. So what I'm doing here is I'm just putting a couple drops on kind of the corner so it catches a little bit of the bearings but a little bit of the pivot too, because I want that to be nice and smooth. What I'll also do here is I'll take the leftover and just drag it along the track, just that so it has that little bit of lube. And then same thing that I did on the other side for the bearings is I put a couple drops in the track as well for it to pick up on its own. Not too much because I don't want it catching dirt and debris and getting gummed up. So just a little bit of lube there. And then because I put it in the track, I'm not going to worry about the ball here. I do the track so that I can make sure that I'm not hitting the actual lock bar, so that it's not creating any type of lock stick. So now with everything down, you should be able to just push everything into place, pull up on your lock bar, pushing down on your thumb stud to make sure that everything has fallen into place. And then go ahead, reinstall your actual scale on the outside there. I usually take the pivot and just drop it in by hand to make sure that it's kind of flush. And then I'll grab the pivot tool, or the tool with the pivot bit in it. I'll take it down, tighten it all the way, and then just loosen it a little bit. And then I will grab the actual T8 that goes to the standoff and try to get that to fall in. There we go. It has fallen in. Go ahead and get that going. Make sure it goes in nice and smooth. Mine's needing a little bit of resistance here, so there we go. Wait, there we go. Now it's going in nice and smooth. Don't force it if it's not going in. You don't want to cross thread it. So what you want to do now is go ahead and make sure that you are centered. And I am centered. Make sure that there is no blade play. Absolutely no blade play. And action feels really, really good. So we'll go ahead and set the Scout tool to the side. We'll grab the Kershaw tool with the actual T6s in them. There we go, trying to get those to fall out. Pay special attention to these because it's going to be hard to show on camera, but one is longer than the other. So the short one is going to go on the inside of the pocket clip. The long one's going to go on the outside because that is going into the standoff. So I will start with the long one. I like to put them on the bit and then just try to feed it through just like that so that it is actually already fed through. And then I'll bring the knife in upside down and go ahead and get that kind of started. Once I meet the resistance of it getting tight, then I'll grab the other one, because if there is any play, which I don't think that there is on this Banter, but if there's any play, it gives you the option to kind of make sure that the screw's going into the scale without any resistance, just like that. Then I'll tighten them down just a little snug by hand. The pocket clip's not going to go anywhere, so you don't really need to over tighten it. Go ahead and give everything one last check. Man, that feels smooth. And this just continues to break in. And this marbled carbon fiber on this Banter, this is by far my favorite. Interesting. The pivot is a little bit off. I'm going to try to loosen it a little and see if that moves it. Let me see. That is strange. Let me try to take it out of the locked position and see if I can rotate it by hand. It does have a little bit of play. I never noticed that before. It does move just a little bit, so the tolerances aren't super tight. I'm going to use my finger to keep the pivot in place. I'm going to go just a little bit past hand tight and then bring it back just a touch. I've done this one enough to where I can feel that there's no play, and then the action's still really, really good. And that lined the Wii up a little bit better. I think it's not quite as off as it was. Yeah, I think it's pretty straight. Might be a little bit upwards, but that doesn't really bother me too much. That's what happens with that style captive pivot. I'd rather them just use the D shape. I think the D shape on the steel liner would actually work a little bit better. But again, what I was saying, this is definitely my favorite of all the Banters. I think the only thing I would probably grab for this, just for style points, would be the Rhino Glow thumb studs. I think those would be really cool. Anyway, hopefully this video has helped you out for some maintenance on your Banter, and most of your Civivis are going to work pretty much like this, but I do continue to do the independent. You can see a little bit of that lube there, but it's not too bad. I'll actually just leave it there for a little while it's closed, just to make sure that it is covered. But I really do like this knife. I enjoy it for a primary summer carry, for a light duty knife just to have in my shorts when I'm walking, or anytime I have my athletic shorts on that I don't have my regular shorts, because great weight, great size, goes in and out really nicely with that pocket clip, which is seriously beat up. I don't know how I do that to my pocket clips. But if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, leave a like. If you're enjoying the content, consider subscribing. I'd love to have you follow along. Thanks to everyone out there that has already subscribed, leaving comments. I appreciate the support. And let me know down in the comments yourself, do you have a Banter? And how do you feel about the maintenance? I feel like it's pretty straightforward with minimal hardware. Really, really easy to maintain these. No reason that you can't handle this yourself. I hope all of you have a fantastic week, and until next time, peace.